It is great to be back after another amazing trip to Cambodia. This was our 14th annual medical mission trip in which we gather many, many doctors together and dentists and people that do eyeglasses and as well as spiritual teaching. And this was another great trip. It was uneventful. We didn't have any potential shipwrecks or breaks going out on the vehicles, etc. And I'm very thankful. What an honor from God to be able to have this stewardship to serve alongside us at Han. It's been a tremendous blessing. And I thank the elders of the Walnut Hill Church of Christ and the mission committee that has been supportive of the work all these years, and look forward to many more years together. Um, CCM, Cambodia Christian Ministries, we have our mission statement. We just get it by using some scripture, which the main scripture that we use is in Matthew chapter 9, when Jesus looks out and sees the multitudes. And so I'll read this passage to you. It says in Matthew 9, verse 35 to 38, and Jesus was going about all the cities and the villages, teaching in their synagogues and proclaiming the gospel of the kingdom, in healing every kind of disease and every kind of sickness. And seeing the multitudes, he felt compassion for them because they were distressed and downcast like a sheep without a shepherd. And then he said to his disciples, the harvest is plentiful, but the workers are few. Therefore, beseech the Lord of the harvest to send out workers into his harvest. When Jesus was on earth and did his ministry, he did essentially two things. He was out preaching and teaching about the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven, and helping people in their spiritual lives. But along with that, Jesus was addressing physical needs. And so he was healing people, every kind of disease and sickness. And at Cambodia Christian Ministries, we do the same thing. We never go into a village, which, by the way, we don't do any work inside the cities. All of our work is in these remote villages where they have no medical care available to them. And so when we go into the villages, we never just go in and preach and leave. We never go and just do medicine and leave. We always do both. And when Jesus, you see him everywhere in the Gospels, he's going. The miracles are not just so people can have a better life on earth. The miracles are to help the people to come to believe in Jesus, that his message is true, that he's from God. And he felt compassion for the multitudes. And when we go into these villages, your heart melts. The people are so precious, so innocent, and they have great needs. And so we try to meet their physical needs, but ultimately we are there to help them spiritually, to help them in their relationship with God. We are in 20 of the 24 provinces. We have representation, whether it be through graduates of our preaching school. We have several hundred house church leaders. They're preachers that have their house church under the up on stilts, and sometimes they'll have a little building that's built there and so on. And we will have seminars, and these leaders come in from different parts of the country, and so they love us. They say, you guys are the only ones who teach Bible only. And so they'll come in, they'll come to our teaching, they go back to their respective villages and their respective provinces. And then the word is spreading from there. And we're reaching most of the country now. We have an influence in. And we're not doing it for our sake, but we're doing it to really get the gospel message of Jesus Christ spread everywhere. During this trip, we met a one-star general that introduced us. We had a two-star general at two different places. We did two different military bases that we worked on, and we helped some soldiers, but also the families of the soldiers. One of the villages the county had 70,000 people and had 10,000 soldiers there, and along with their families, and that made up a large portion of the of that county. So then we went to other places as well, but there's government officials of different sorts that will interview us. They might come along on the trip and for a day or two, and they interview us. They want to hear what we're teaching. They want to see what we're doing medically. and then they will write a report about us. In August of 24, we were on the national news 3 different times, and so we've become pretty popular over there with the government. They really like what we do. They see that our genuine love for the people and so on. And so I'm eager to share with you some of the things that we did on this most recent trip. You see the Cambodia Christian Ministries logo on top. The green stands for land, and the blue is for water. And the message of our logo is over land and sea, there is a new day dawning with the cross of Christ. So it's a pretty cool logo that Reno and Sacoma and I came up with. And that's exactly what's happening. So as the trip began, we actually drove 6 or 7 hours to get up to the northwesternmost point of the mission work that we were going to do. Since the first day, when we got up, we toured our land at CCM, and then we didn't have any village to work in that day, so we knocked out the longest drive because we don't want to be driving during the day when it's daylight, because we're doing the ministry the entire time. And so we drove all the way up near Thailand to Battambang province. And we rent a bus every year. This one is a party bus, but well, we were kind of having a party, but it was one in celebration of our service of the Lord. And so while we drive, we try to take advantage of every minute. So even while we're on the bus driving, we'll have devotionals, and the Cambodia young guys in the back of the bus, they'll sing songs in Khmer, and then if it's quiet for a while, the those up more up front will start singing songs in English, and then here Tim Gunther is doing a devotional talk while we're driving, and Sacom is interpreting for him. If you'll notice in the bus, we had 57 or 58 of us, and so the students have to bring little plastic chairs along, and they fill up the middle of the bus, the aisleway, because we don't have enough seats on the bus. So, but we've been to 20 of the 24 provinces that where we've had exposure, and so they were well known by the government. As I mentioned earlier, we were on the national news a couple of times last year, 3 times actually, and but we're just well known because of our graduates of our preaching school, but also because of the government people that will accompany us sometimes. They want to know what we're doing and what our message is and so on, but they also are very impressed with the medical work, etc. And then we have house church leaders that we work with, and they also know us well, and so we have exposure and influence in many different parts of the country. Here we're in a civic building, government building, and this is our team of the 57, 58 people. Almost everywhere we go, this trip, everywhere where we went, we had awards given to us, plaques given to us, and thanking us for coming there to serve the people in the villages. And of course, in the villages, they don't have any medical care. They do in the cities, but not in the villages. And so there are Cambodia doctors that work in the capital of Phnom Penh, maybe in Battambang, or Siem Reap, and they have their practice there. But we use all military doctors, and or almost all military doctors, and they want to help the people in the villages, but they don't have any organized way to do it. And so they love us because we provide for them a team of people and a schedule that's run, from morning until night, and very well organized. And our 3 doctors at CCM, they will go in front of us a month or two, and they meet and get all the necessary permits from the government officials. And so this day was at a civic building, and there were a tremendous amount of people there. This is what it looks like a lot of times when we pull into a village. There are hundreds and hundreds of people waiting for us, since they don't have any medical care. And the village chief or some of the people that work with him, they will go in advance and people will get a number. So, you have day one morning, day one afternoon, day two, et cetera, because we go to 2 days to each village, except for sometimes we can only do one day because of the scheduling. But on this trip, we did one village one day, and then we did four different villages. We were there for 2 days at a time. So here's a video kind of going through one of the areas. We usually are in schools where they'll shut down classes, half the school or all of the school, and the doctors, eye doctors, dentists, and so on go in some rooms. The preachers we'll try to preach outside if it's not raining. The students there were doing reading glasses. This is Audrey Jackson that just was coming into view there. She works for Christian Chronicle, and they're going to do a couple of features on our work there. This is coming into the pharmacy here. That is Shrenong. That's Sacom and Pauline's daughter. But here's where you see the work in the pharmacy. Very interesting. Huh? I always say it's a CVS for Cambodians very sick. But we buy probably $25,000 or more of medicine in Cambodia, and then bring it along as we go from village to village. Our doctors repack every day and so on. This is a school here, so you can see what it looks like. Not like an American classroom for sure. They did have a little electricity there. This is Dr. Tad Tollison, and Pam is helping him. Bailey, she's helping him with sonograms. He didn't do any surgeries there, so he bought a little portable sonogram that would project onto his cell phone so that he could work with pregnant women and show them the progress of the pregnancy and so on. And then he did some other people as well. Here's the dental area, and in the left side there you see Dr. Stuart Powers. He's been with me the last 3 trips. I call him STP, Stuart the Terminator with the pliers, as all they do is pull teeth. They don't do anything else there. Look at the crowd. Those are people all waiting to get medical treatment. This is the morning time, so they're going to be there all day waiting. They have a number that they've chosen, they picked, and they'll get help during the day. Here's inside the medical clinic with the doctors, probably 12, 15 doctors, and that are doing medical work. And in the middle of the room, you see the people. They're in the final waiting area, while the other people are still waiting outside. And doctors will. Most of the issues are going to be sinus issues or dysentery, and they'll work with them from there. And so it's been really good. The doctors, the medical team, the dentists, and so on. And by the way, Stuart worked with 4 dental students that were in their 4th year of schooling. So Stuart not only was doing dental work, but he also was teaching, which was just an added bonus as far as he was concerned, where he was able to be effective for God. This is Tim Gunther that I showed him earlier on the bus giving a devotional. Tim finished his 6-year enlistment in the Army back in January, and he helped in different areas, especially with children. He was a chaplain also as a sergeant in the military. Here, what he's done is, besides doing different things, mostly working with the children, one of the things he did was he had a push-up contest with the children, and he nearly had heat stroke by the time he was done. He said the children won, but I think he was, cutting some slack to them. Plus, their push-ups weren't military grade. But Tim has been to Cambodia one other time, and he worked with a sex trade ministry, and has a desire to come back to Cambodia. Found us online, and Tim is seeing if we're a match for him, and if we think he's a match for us, and if so, he's going to come back to the States and finish his degree in education. And when we open our K through 12 school, that where we have the orphans on our property, Tim would become one of our teachers. And so we'll see what doors God opens there. Back in 23 in the summer, Brad Straley with 2 other girls from Abilene Christian University came as interns to serve alongside us and see what they thought about mission work. And Brad said, I've been wanting to be a missionary all of my life. And so on August 28th, 2024, Brad moved to Cambodia and he works full time at the ministry there. He's learning Khmer like crazy. He was actually doing some interpreting for me when Sakome would be up speaking. I didn't know what he was talking about, so Brad would sit by me and he would be talking gently into my ear, telling me exactly what Sakome was saying. And then to top the whole thing off, Brad got married January 3rd to Sri Lam, a Cambodia young lady. So here's this is Laura in the front there next to Sri Nang. Laura Coutinho is from Brazil, southern Brazil, way down by Uruguay. She's a young medical student and found us online. She actually been watching our worship services since April. Heard me mention Cambodia one time, and so she checked in with me and asked if she could come along. And so we brought her along on the trip. In the background there is a two-star general and I guess a colonel or captain or something, and then far left is Dr. Tola. He's one of our three full-time doctors. And of course, doctors in Cambodia do not get paid what they do in America, not by a long shot. And behind Laura is, I'm sure, a local government official who is, they're touring. The general and others are touring our work to see. And so they go from the pharmacy area to the eyeglasses and to the medical and so on. But here are the total numbers on our trip. There were almost 7,000 patients that were taken care of during the 2 weeks. And part of that 2 weeks is the front end and the back end of the trip. So I think it was 9 or 10 days of work in the field. But like if a patient goes and gets a tooth pulled, but they also see the doctor, that's one patient, but it's two patient visits. And so our total patient visits was nearly 12,000 during that time, which seems crazy, but they are working constantly. And people say, well, yeah, but you got to travel. You traveled. You did 5 different villages. And like Sakome told the government official who was contemplating whether or not to renew our permit to continue to do our work as an NGO, and wasn't sure he trusted our numbers. Sakome said, he said, you can't drive. You got to drive as well. So and Sakome said, we drive at night, which is true. We drive after the day is over. We get on the bus after 2 days, and then we drive for 2 or 3 or 4 hours to get to the next province. And we were in 4 different provinces, 5 different villages. And then while the doctors and dentists and so on are doing their ministry, that is when Mark Banks and I are doing preaching and teaching. And we had a total of 877 students, and about 100 a day is what we had average, because some of the people were in 2 days in a row. And then Mike and Jenny Tollison, you'll see them in a little bit. They had 1,621 children, and they are doing a phenomenal work. And Mike said he was a little upset. He said, we're not coming back next trip unless we bring Bibles for every child. And so he'll get it done. And then there were 44 people who expressed their faith in Jesus, expressed their faith, accepted the grace of God in the blood of Jesus, and were baptized into Christ for the remission of sins and received the Holy Spirit as they began their walk by faith, trusting in Jesus. And so it was a great amount of people that were served physically and spiritually. The culture of Cambodia, there's 2 cultures in Cambodia. There's the city culture and there is the village culture. The villages are completely different from the city. Uh, they're not in the city. They're trying to get ahead every chance they can get, and so on. The village people have nowhere to go and all day to get there, and they're very very poor, but they're very very kind and loving and more gentle spirited and just not in a hurry as people are elsewhere. So here's a little video. I could have taken more, but this will suffice to give you the idea. This is where the 10,000 soldiers and their families were. Here's a fruit stand, vegetable stand, and so on, where people can come by and buy things. And people tell me, how much money should I bring along to Cambodia? I tell them, if after the airfare and your passport and your shots, if you spend $100 while you're at Cambodia, I'll be surprised, because you're probably not going to buy anything in the villages, and that's where we are the entire time. And so look at how friendly the people are, just so loving, so kind. This is a 7-Eleven. They don't have a sign out front, but that's what I jokingly say. Um, that bird up on top, it wasn't a parrot. I don't know what it was, but you'll see that in a second. That parrot would talk right there. He would speak, but if you said a really big word, he would just laugh at you. And but if you just said a short phrase, he would imitate it. But yeah, probably that food there we would not be eating. Uh, if you live in the villages, you could get away with it, but the rest of us would be in trouble. And so it's a great tour around the village that we took. This is just a little bit of the video work of it, and then it finishes with I took a picture of what it is the Nebraska furniture truck delivering some mattresses. Thought that was one of many that are like that. So, besides the medical mission, the other thing that goes on is that, as I had said earlier, we do both. We do medical, physical, and we do spiritual, sharing Jesus with the people. And that's what they call us. A lot of the Buddhists in Cambodia call us Jesus people. That's our message. It's always going to be about Jesus. And so this is a crazy video because here's Mike and Jenny Tolleson. They're teaching inside of a classroom, teaching on Jesus in a public school. Look at all the children that are in that class. And this is the first time they're hearing about Jesus, the creation of the world, and so on. That's Chuan, a Vietnamese girl that moved when I was in Vietnam last summer. She came to visit us over at CCM after I left, and decided that she wanted to stay and be part of our ministry. And she is phenomenal. She speaks 4 languages, and she was my interpreter when I was in Vietnam. Here, Jenny is teaching on day 1. This happens. Day 2, this happens. And here you have a fairly well-off businessman who is drawing on a board with a bunch of children. So, and he, as well as his brother, the cardiologist, would say they were getting way more blessings than the people they were serving. He was honored, and they had done a great job. And so this was what he was drawing by the time he was all done, just going through the 7 days of creation and who is God and the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They'd never heard about the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. They probably, some of them had heard the name of Jesus, but we were in remote villages, so there's no TV. So their amount of information from the rest of the world is a little bit limited. So then Mark Banks and I, this is me teaching. This is what it looks like. Our classroom looks like. We're outside. If it's not raining, we're going to be outside. And that way people that are waiting to get medical treatment can listen to us. And people will come by. If we're in a high school, a lot of times there might be 50 or 100 high school students that are standing around listening to us as well. If we're in a classroom, people will be leaning in the windows because there's no glass on the windows. And Sacom knows my teaching very well. He does a lot of the interpreting, but also we have 2 of our graduates, Gia and Thra. They do some of the interpreting, but a lot of times we need Sacom on certain areas. And so he'll listen a lot and meander around, see what the doctors are doing, make sure everything's running smoothly. But a lot of time he will come back and we'll need his help a little bit on things. Classes averaged about 100 or more per class. Sometimes the comb ends up. I'll talk for 20 seconds in English. He'll interpret. It'll take him 40 seconds in Khmer. It just takes longer. And then I might talk for 20 seconds, and then he'll talk for a minute and a half or something. And when I go to start talking again, he'll say, "I already said that, brother." He knows my teaching well enough after all these trips that he'll sometimes take off on me. I got to try to reel him in. But a lot of questions. They'll ask questions like, Siddhartha Gautama he was 565 BC, the beginning of Buddhism, and Jesus didn't come for all those centuries later. So Buddhism was first, so it should be the religion we follow. And of course, we show them how Jesus actually existed from eternity and was the spirit son of God in heaven before he came to earth 2,000 years ago. And 2,000 years before Jesus came to earth, Abraham was the father of the Jewish nation, and God told him, "In you, all the families of the earth are going to be blessed." And he was referring to Jesus. So the preparation for Jesus was 1400 years before Buddhism ever began. And plus, if it goes by age, there were a lot of Buddhism came out of Hinduism, and so maybe Hinduism would be first. Then that's not the way you would measure it. You would measure it by truth, not by years. You measure by the amount of truth. But we'll get questions like that. We'll get questions like, if Jesus if Jesus was a king, why was he born in a barn? Which is a tremendous question, and a lot of question about, if I become a Christian, my family's still Buddhist. How do I interact with them? Can I go to the pagoda? Can I go to a funeral? Can I go to a wedding? There's a lot of questions that we try to help them with, so that they can become all things to all men, that they might by all means save some. And we certainly don't want them uh, judging and belittling Buddhism, but more sharing the good news of Jesus with people. And this is Mark Banks. Mark and I actually were in school together, theology, and known each other for over 40 years, been great friends. And Mark has come with me, I think, 13 times now to Cambodia, and we just kind of tag team teach with each other, and cover each other's backs. And with it's kind of handy when there's two of us, because we get tired during the day after 2 weeks of this. You're worn out. This was actually a denominational church building, and I won't mention the name of it, but the pastor of the church sat on the front row with his wife and teenage son. And after the second morning, the 17-year-old boy, I guess he was maybe 18, he asked to be baptized into Christ. And we thought his dad, he was kind of looking, this kind of stare at us, and it turned out that he didn't want to be the one to baptize him. He wasn't confident he would do it, that he wasn't doing baptisms there. And so we baptized his son. His son then said, I want to come to your school and be into your preaching school, and down in Kampong Spu province. And so he's going to come to our school. And his father said, I loved your teaching. You just teach the Bible. I really like that. And, we don't know what will come of all this. Those weren't all of his members. Those people will come in on motorbikes and taxi, like maybe a van that might have 30 people in it, stuffed in it. And they'll come from an hour or so away sometimes to come to our seminars when they find out that we're coming. And yeah, of the house church leaders Sacom said we have 482 that come to our seminars that have come. And none of them have a Church of Christ background. They're Baptist, Methodist, Presbyterian, Korean church, independent of some sort, New Life Church, just all kinds, Pentecostal, but they say, we love your teachings from the Bible. And Mark and I we don't have any notes with us. We just uh, teach from the Bible the whole time. And of course, a lot of it ends up being questions, and you have to be on your toes when they ask a question. We don't answer a question without Scripture. So you better be on your toes to be able to bring them to a passage in Matthew or whatever, to show them what God says about it, because it doesn't matter what man says. The only thing that matters is what God says. Um, and this next video is going to show people who just still shots of people who have been baptized into Christ while we are there. There were 44 of them. And what's amazing is uh, they'll be a lot of our students and others who are believers already, who will stand around, and they're all singing the whole time. They're singing loud. And so, like Sacom and I, or Mark and Sacom, or whoever, they'll be down in this little corner, little cubby hole, talking to the person, and we can hear the singing loud, but the people can't hear what Sacom and I are talking about as we prepare to baptize a person. They're singing spiritual songs about living for Jesus and so on. And there were 44 who turned their lives over to Jesus there. And what we teach is biblical passages out of Acts and other New Testament books, how people, when they came to believe in Jesus and realized they were sinners who needed to be forgiven of their sins, and they realized only Jesus could do that. They couldn't earn their way to heaven. They couldn't work their way to heaven. And they were also willing to surrender their lives to Jesus and accept him as their Lord. And so in the Bible, what happens is those people are born again. They're buried with Christ in baptism into death. And they, just like Jesus was raised from the dead, so we too are walking newness of life. They're born again. And so it's an honor to we bring a portable baptistry, and we've baptized in rivers, in ponds, in coolers, huge coolers that barely a person barely fits inside the cooler, water pots. And we've baptized in all kinds of crazy places over the years as people have put their faith in Jesus. And we had some pretty fairly regularly will tell us that whatever church they're going to says you can't be baptized right away. You have to wait at least 1 year to make sure you don't fall away. And so we show passages in the Bible where the Philippian jailer and his household are baptized in the middle of the night, and the Ethiopian eunuch on his way back to Africa said, "There's water right there. What prevents me from being baptized?" And so they were, he was baptized right then and there. And so we try to do what the Bible does, but we try to make sure first of all, we never pressure, push, coerce, or use some sort of trickery. We just share the gospel with them, and show them what people did, and they have an interest in doing that. And so, and the cool thing is that we have house church leaders in these areas. And so those people who are baptized are not just dropped. We have house church leaders that will bring them into their church family, which is really, really a great thing. So a few years back, Sacombe said, I would like to build a Christian school on our property. We have about 100 acres. We have dug fish ponds and have planted 2,000 coconut trees. Some of them got washed away in the flood a couple years ago. We have frogs that we sell, um, and mango trees, etc. And then we have hundreds of chickens and ducks and so on. A rice field, trying to provide a lot of our own support into the future. But he wanted to build a Christian school on the property. We have 100 acres is a pretty good amount of land. And I said, I think we should just keep supporting orphans in the villages like we've been doing. So we kind of went back and forth for a couple of years. Finally, I said, how about we build a Christian school on the property and we fill it with orphans from around the country? So if we agreed, that would be a good thing to do. And so that began the Jesus Children movement. So Cone said, I don't want to call them orphans; they're a family. So we're Jesus Place. Uh, this is Jesus Place, and we're Jesus people. We need to have Jesus children, and so that's what we have. And of course, for us, one of the major reasons is the people in Cambodia and the villages especially are at a very great disadvantage. They're not looking ever for. We don't have anybody looking for a handout, but they're looking for a helping hand, and they're industrious and hardworking and so on. But they have a disadvantage, and so, but no one has bigger disadvantages than orphans and widows. And of course, God always pleads the case for the widows and the orphans and the poor and so on. It's 84 times in the Old Testament you'll see either orphan or fatherless. And then many of us are familiar with James 1:27, that this is pure and undefiled religion in the sight of our God and Father, to visit orphans in their distress, orphans and widows in their distress, and keep oneself unstained from the world. That's pure devotion toward God. Is God cares for those who are needy, and which is us, and but He wants us to extend that kindness to those who need help, and especially to orphans and widows. And so we had 85 Jesus children brought in a year earlier than I thought. So it's made things very hectic for us. And we have 50 now. Some were not true orphans and went back with their families and so on. And but we have 49 or 58 children right now, and it's really a great thing. We've built our first house initially it was going to be 3,000 square feet, but one of the men said 3,000 square feet is not enough for 10 boys on one side and 10 girls on the other side, with a husband and wife over as house parents over the boys and two nannies over the girls. We got to go at least 4,000 square feet or bigger. The next thing you know, Socombs built a 5,000 square foot house, and then he added a 1,600 square foot second floor, and which turned out to be awesome because we're going to use the second floor for the classrooms. So instead of building a $2 million school in the middle of the property, we'll eventually have 240 children, 20 in each house. That'll mean 12 houses, and that will be 12 grades. And so a child may live in house number 1, but he might go to school over at house number 4. And there'll be an 8-foot sidewalk between joining each house with an overhang in case it's raining, and so they can travel to and from. Plus, they'll come home for lunch. They'll eat breakfast at home, have lunch. They come home for lunch. Each house has a fairly good sized lot, so that children will learn to plant their own food and harvest their own vegetables and so on. And it's just a great, great thing. It's kind of a Little House on the Prairie on steroids, in a little more elegant thing than Little House on the Prairie. They're really, really beautiful, and we'll have videos on what they look like when we have one with furniture and everything in it. The first building is now done, and but we have to put furniture in it before we can start moving the children in. So this is the children in front of the house with some of the adults with them that care for them. And on the far right is Sakim. She's an amazing worker for CCM, and Sreynit, Sreylon. Just a lot of people. Chewin helps with the kids. There's a lot of people that are working with the children. Children go to school half a day, public school right now, because we haven't started our school yet, and then we have tutors in the afternoon that take care of do some further teaching to help them really get up on things. And once or twice a month, we'll feed some of the area children. And there's 12 villages that surround CCM. This is our barn, and but we put equipment and so on in there. We empty it out and serve a couple hundred children once or twice a month, and they mix in with our Jesus children. Since they go to school together, and it really helps cultivate friendships between the children. And they like us because they get a meal that they normally don't get here. They had fried chicken and coleslaw and obviously rice. They have rice 3 times a day, and it's funny. Some of those kids would eat their rice before they'd eat their chicken leg, and then they would go back and get more rice before they would eat their chicken leg. So they like rice, and it's pretty pretty cool. So this picture is a picture in 2013. Uh, we were sitting at a table in an elementary school, and the whole school was shut down for us to do our medical mission. We had 60 some people there, and doctors in 2 or 3 different classrooms, and dentists and so on. And then we taught inside classrooms at that time, back then yet, before we started combining our classes together. And during lunch, after lunch, the doctors got up. We were eating outside under a tent, and there were probably 10 tables there or whatever there was, and the doctors and nurses and so on, they got up and left, either to go rest for a minute or started treating patients again. And we were still sitting there talking, and we could see these children, about 10 kids, going from table to table, eating the scraps off the table, uh, getting any little crumbs of rice that were left inside the dishes and so on. And so we asked the assistant village chief named Tang. We asked him, "Sacom, who are these kids?" And so he came over. He told us 6 of them are orphans, and he said, if you look across the property, you'll see their little house, and this was their house there. One of the oldest girl is missing. Shrey Young is missing, but the other 5 are there. And this was 2013, and some Christians up in Missouri provided the monthly support for them. And then we actually bought a little piece of land and built a little house on it for them, a brand new one. Their house here had the wall, one wall was caving in. They had palm branches on the side, and it was caving in, and they had a half a bag of rice. That was the only food they had inside the house. The uncle and his family lived next door, and they provided some food. But the problem was that they had to try and feed their own kids, and so these six were their mom and dad both died within 6 months of each other, about a year and a half or two before we met them. So those were our first orphans that we took in, and they lived near where we were, and had one adult living on the property with them. And so here is a picture of seven of our CCM people. These are Cambodia Bible School students, and they are now going to the university on weekends. They leave early Saturday morning, come back Saturday afternoon, and they are preparing to. Some of them have graduated from the school, preaching school, and some of them have taken, maybe a year or more of the classes. And so we're raising up some of our own young people in the faith, helping them have a good, balanced relationship with the Lord. And they're going to come back about the time they graduate is when we'll be opening our school. And so these are some of our first teachers. Hopefully, all of them stay and stay with us and work with us. And what's interesting, why I took the picture, is the two on the far right, the girl in the blue checkered type shirt and the boy in the light blue, baby blue shirt behind her. That's Sakni and Samon. Those were the two youngest of the six orphans. And we've kept them the whole time since 2013. So here we are 12 years later. And it brought tears to my eyes because Sakom said to Sakni, the little girl, that you've come a long way from the days when we found you scraping scraps of food off the table. And she said, I will always be with CCM. I love CCM. I love Sakom, and just really a very moving story. So we'll end up with orphan teachers teaching orphan children, and which is pretty cool. Uh, this is a separate thing that needs to be included is the religion of Cambodia. It's about 95% Buddhist. This is Siem Reap, Angkor Wat, which was still one of the great wonders of the world. These temples that kings had built back in their heyday, maybe 13 to 1500 years ago. And they built these big palaces and holy places for the gods. And this is the big one, but there's 500 acres and there's a lot of these around. And so we went there, but interesting uh, their belief system that and we love working with them, and we love the Buddhists, we love the Muslims, and share Jesus with them. These three girls were at our seminar on the military base where we taught. And the reason that I took this photograph of them was the girl in the light blue sweater. She has her. She's a Christian girl. The other two are Buddhist, and they have the red yarn tied around around their wrist. That it was blessed by the Buddhist priest to protect them from the evil spirits. And so you might see people with red yarn tied around the handlebars of their little motorbike, um, that they believe this will help fend off the evil spirits and give them protection with the ancestors that have died. These are belts that people came to be baptized, and they said, I don't need this anymore. I don't need protection from the evil spirits because I have Jesus. Jesus is more powerful than all the evil spirits in combined. You can beat them all with a little finger, and no problem. And so Jesus will protect them into the future. And plus, they know where they're going when they die, because we dealt a lot of that in this trip. Do you know what happens to you after you die? And they were just amazed at the resurrection of Jesus and the eternal life that we can have through him. And here's a young lady that's given the monk offering, and she gets some blessings from him to her. And so just interesting when you look at some of the world religions, and how much sense it makes to the story of Jesus, the whole thing from creation all the way through in Genesis through Revelation. It's just makes a lot more sense as to what happened. Plus, the evidence for it is overwhelming for Christianity. There are some great servants. Everybody on the trip, it's amazing the unity that we have. Nobody's complaining about anything. Everybody's just serving God the whole time. And I mean, it's day and night, getting up at 4 in the morning. I mean, it's a, people say, it's only 2 weeks long. That's not very long. After 2 weeks, everybody is dead tired, ready to drop because it is very, very intense the entire time. Jesus said, the Son of Man has not come to be served, but to serve and give his life as a ransom for many. And the reality is, we're never more like Christ than when we serve. And so, this is a great, great way to serve. This I couldn't help but take advantage of this act. Here's a dentist, well off, semi-retired, I think now. Dentist, and he's wiping off chairs so that the patients have a clean place to sit. Stuart Powers, and here's the cardiologist from Tyler, Texas, Dr. Tullison, wiping off chairs and tables as people begin to funnel in uh, for treatment. And someone told him, let somebody else do it. And he didn't like that idea. He was happy doing what he was doing. And just a servant heart, which is a great thing. These are our three full-time doctors on the right: Dr. Tola, Dr. Selah, Dr. Da. They've been with us from nearly the beginning, first or second year. I guess they kind of one joined after another within a period of months, and Sacombe in the middle, and me, and Mark Banks, who's been with me so many times. But these three doctors, they are amazing. How they serve the ministry, and not as overlords, and we're doctors. They're right down there with people, and just making sure, and they're spoiled Americans, making sure we're well taken care of. Well, I guess mostly Mark and me, maybe they take care of us. One night they even brought us. There happened to be a Dairy Queen, and it's the only American thing you'll see there. But in this town that we were going through, which had a fairly good population, so we stay in hotels at night. So I tell people I can stand on my head during the day if I can get a shower and an air conditioner at night. And so we find a town. They've found them months in advance, and I got all the rooms booked and all the villages booked, everything set up in advance. But great, great servants. And I couldn't help, Sacombe, what a tremendous thing to have been involved in the killing fields. Sacombe said it wasn't a wartime; it was just killing time. As the Cameroons just killed so many people, just the Holocaust of that country, 75 to 79. And this man was actually a Pol Pot enemy soldier of Sacombe. They didn't know each other during the war, but he was Pol Pot, and Sacombe worked with the Americans in Lanao. Um, and now Sacombe said, we're not enemies anymore. We're brothers in the Lord, serving God. And he came to our seminars and was learning more on how to help people in his village come to know Jesus. And so it was a great thing to see a man of God that has devoted his life, given the rest of his life after having all the luxuries of home in the U.S., has moved back to Cambodia to serve the Lord and let God use him. And is very, very unique because, like one guy said, more than one guy said, that people don't come back to Cambodia if they've been through what Sacombe has been through. They only come back, if they do come back, it's only for money and power and women. They don't come back to serve the Lord like he has. And I think that's one of the reasons why this ministry has exploded. It's because of Sacombe's faithfulness to God and willing to give his life for God to use him. Well, in conclusion, this was an amazing trip, and I want to invite you perhaps someday to join me over in Cambodia. I can guarantee you it is a faith changer. Everyone who has gone over there with me, uh, they've all survived, first of all, and they've just their faith has been changed. Sakoma and I kind of have a policy. When you come to visit with Cambodia and work with us over there, when you leave, if you're not crying, you don't get to come back. And it's kind of a joke, but the point of it is that it is such a change of our faith to be involved in a ministry like this and let God use us to bless some unbelievably precious people. Even our cardiologist that came with us this time, he said the people thought that I was blessing them. He said, uh, but they blessed me way more than I was a blessing to them. And it just touched his heart so much. I'm sure that he's coming back with us in next January for the big medical mission trip. But I would certainly entertain different people coming with me if it will be a benefit to the ministry and then a benefit to you also. And, of course, all of us can serve in another great mission field without flying 22 and a half hours over to Cambodia. Probably shouldn't have told you how long it was. Uh, that we're in a mission field everywhere we are. We're in the heart of Dallas. And as far as I'm concerned, Walnut Hill Church of Christ, we're in a mission field, 100%. And so wherever we are, we need to be active, reaching out, doing what we can to share the gospel. And I can guarantee you, people love hearing about mission trips and youth work and benevolence. Those are big things to people who don't know Jesus very well. Those are big things. Sharing this presentation about Cambodia, it can touch hearts. And looking at the Cambodia website, some of the videos will touch people's hearts, and I encourage you to share those with other people. And of course, as always, as our ministry keeps growing with the water wells and all these orphans that we've taken on now, we need help financially. And so, anytime if you feel moved to help us financially, we would certainly invite you to help us there as well. And I thank God for you tuning in, listening, learning hopefully about a great mission work in Cambodia, and pray that you're blessed. And if I can be a blessing to you, please contact me. Have a great day close to the Lord.